Welcome everybody to the Southwest Florida TechNet tonight on Zoom, which is slowly becoming one of my favorite platforms. I know it's a love-hate. I hate it too, and I love it as well. I find my love-hate with Zoom to be similar to my love-hate with Windows, which runs very deep. All right, anyway, I'd like to welcome everybody. Tonight we're going to do Raspberry Pi, and we're going to finish Winlink from a standpoint that we're now going to put Winlink on Raspberry Pi, and we're going to go from there. And then we're going to take some time to go through all the different things that you can do with Winlink, or I'm sorry, with Raspberry Pi. Steve W9 GPI is with us again tonight, and he's going to be co-hosting with me and directing us through this. And we're going to be going through some of all the different functions. The question was asked, why would I buy one of these things?
Yeah.
And so we're going to be answering that tonight. We're going to show you all the different things you can do with it and show you why some of it can actually be done without a whole lot of frustration. I know there was a few things that were a little hard to get through. So we're going to talk about all these different things tonight. So Steve, are you on? I don't see you. You must be on the other page or something.
No, Steve just walked away when you said he was going to have to present it. So he just left the room.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll sit here and think about Steve.
You scared him away, Ian.
It's all right. He'll be ready.
Steve, can a regular laptop work instead of a Pi?
For Winlink?
Yes.
Yes, the easiest thing to use would be a Windows machine, actually. It was originally designed for Windows. If you have a Windows machine, you just load it in and you can use it right online right now. There he is. But yes, Steve, I'm fielding the first question. What if they don't have a Raspberry Pi? Can they use Winlink on Windows? And I was just letting you know that it actually works great and pretty simplistic on Windows. And if you've got your Windows computer hooked up to one of your radios, of course, then we can go to the next step and go past that. Remember with Winlink, there's Winlink through the internet. And then there's Winlink radio only. And I guess I'll turn it over to Steve at this point. But Steve, I was just, I let him know while you were gone that we're going to be going through all the different things you can do with a Raspberry Pi tonight after we finish up with anybody that has any questions about Winlink, Winlink Raspberry Pi, Winlink for emergency management. So wherever you want to start, sir, it's up to you.
Okay, well, I was going to start with, let's see here. Let's do it this way. I've got an overview of this whole thing, which is to say we're going to talk about the Raspberry Pi, what it is, how it works, how you set it up to make it work, and then some different things that you can do with it. And we'll show some examples of different operating systems. I had set my Pi 400 up before we started and turned on the VNC so it would be completely ready to go when I started talking, but it has stopped. And at some point I'll have to restart that. So Ian, be prepared to pick it up, but it'll be a few minutes yet before we get to that stage.
No problem.
So what I'm going to do is share the screen here for a minute. And I'm going to be talking and you guys are going to be looking at some dead screen for a while, and you're going to be looking at some video images and things like that. All right, so I'm going to do this guy here, I guess, share. Okay. So this is one version of the Raspberry Pi. By the way, sources for a minute, Adafruit, ADAFRUIT Industries is a good place to get Raspberry Pis because they sell them at the standard rate, as opposed to, this is now a Amazon link that you're looking at. This package on Amazon sells for $159.99. On Adafruit, the same thing sells for $100 plus a couple of bucks shipping. Unfortunately, I checked a few minutes ago with Adafruit, and they don't have the 400 in stock right now. Normally what they'll let you do is put your name on an email list, and then when they get them in stock, they'll send you a note. So be aware of that. But this is one version of this thing. This keyboard and I have one of these sitting over here on my right, is a Raspberry Pi. The Pi is actually built into the keyboard. So you connect a monitor, you connect a mouse, and you connect power. Everything else is in the keyboard, except, of course, the operating system. And we're going to talk about that as we get a little further along on this. I'm going to just leave that thing sitting. Let's see, will I? What else have I got here? Whoop. All right, try that. There we go. This is the Adafruit website. So here's the Raspberry Pi, this guy right here in the corner. And I am going to turn on my other camera. Can I do that when this is running?
Yeah, down under start video.
Tom, I hear you, but I didn't get the last part of that comment.
Okay, the little umlaut next to the start video. And it says select a camera when you get the menu, the drop
Oh,
down
wait a minute.
menu.
Here we go. Yeah, it shows up at the top of my screen. All right, HD webcam. So let's see. There's the Raspberry Pi compared to a credit card. It's about exactly the same size as a credit card. Okay. We're going to talk about how it's run. This is a micro SD card sitting next to a dime. So you get an idea of how big that puppy is when we start talking about it.
Steve, why don't you turn off your screen share if you're still showing something on the camera? I think that might work better.
Oh, okay. In that case, let's get up here and stop share. All right.
There we go.
Okay. So were you able to see what I was just showing you or not?
Show us again, because people might not have seen it on the little block. You were in Brady Bunch over there.
Okay. Well, I could try this.
There we go. We see it now.
All right. So there's the Pi compared to a credit card. It's about the size of a credit card. Okay. And over here, this little guy is a micro SD card. That's a 32 gigabyte chip.
Wow.
Okay. You remember how big a 1 megabyte drive or a 10 megabyte drive used to be? All right, let me put the camera back here where it belongs for a minute. You have to look at my ugly face. Sorry about that. Now, give you the story. The Raspberry Pi is a computer. Believe it or not, it is a full-fledged computer. There are different versions available. The 3B Plus being one of the most popular, and it's priced at $35. The 4B is the current model, and that thing's price depends on how much RAM you buy with it. Comes with, I'm not sure the low end. I think it's 2 gigabytes, 4 gigabytes for sure, 8 gigabytes for sure. And then the Pi 400 is the one with the keyboard, and that's $100. The 4 sells for about $75. Now, keep in mind, you also need a power supply or some means to power the thing. It takes 5 volts. It runs off a USB power supply, but typically 2.5 to 3 amps required to make the thing work. So be aware of that.
Steve, I
Hello.
got my 4 for $61.
All right. Where?
Amazon.
Wow. Okay, make a liar out of me. See if I care. All right. So it is a complete, all by its lonesome computer. You need, except for the 400, you need keyboard, mouse, monitor, power supply to make it go. Now, keep in mind that the device itself has RAM built in, but there is no physical memory. There is no, quote, hard drive, unquote, built into this thing. The hard drive and the operating system are both provided to the Raspberry Pi by this micro SD card. Okay. So the SD card, the micro SD card is think of it this way, it's the brains and the memory part of a Raspberry Pi. One of the neat things about that fact is that you can have an operating system and say, a complete office setup on one chip. And then on another chip, you can have an operating system and all the ham radio stuff that you want to run. And we'll talk about some of that as we get further on down the road here. But keep in mind then that all files, anything that you create on the Raspberry Pi, are stored on the SD card. They are not stored on the Pi itself. So once you shut down the Pi, and if you want to, you remove the SD card, that has all the information that you put on that thing. Now, SD cards, micro SD cards come in a lot of different sizes. Minimum for Raspberry Pi, 8 gigabytes. 8 gigabytes is the minimum for a Raspberry Pi. They are available in 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, and 256 gigabytes on that little itty bitty card. Don't ask me how they do that. I haven't figured it out, but that is the case. All right. So next thing is I have a Pi. Now what? Well, the first thing you need, as we said, is an SD card. We recommend you start with a blank chip, blank card. You need a USB carrier. And I'm going to switch back for a second here to the video camera, the outboard video camera. So to program this thing, you need a carrier. And here's one example of a carrier. This is a little USB gadget. You put the chip into this thing. It just slides right in there. And then you plug that thing into a USB port on your computer, either a Macintosh or a PC, okay? Here's another version of the same thing. It's a little larger, USB on one end, and on the side, I'm not sure you'll be able to see this, but on the side, you can't see it, but there is a slot, and the slot takes the SD card, okay? So that's a different version of that same approach. But you'll need something like that to be able to install the SD card into your computer so that you can program it. So that's step one. Step two is you have to download the Raspberry Pi software. Where do you do that? There's a website called raspberrypi.org. And you're looking for what's called the Buster, B-U-S-T-E-R, image. That's the operating system, the current operating system for Raspberry Pi. So you download that thing to your computer. This is going to take a few minutes because this is like a 2 gigabyte file. So you say, okay, download, and you run away and go have a cup of coffee and come back, and with a little luck, it'll be done. The last time I tried this, I think it took 17 minutes to download it. Next step. Download a program called Balena Etcher. That's B-E-L-A-N-A Etcher, like E-T-C-H-E-R. You can find that on the web at Balena, BALENA.io. Okay. This is the program that your computer runs to put the information onto the chip. Right? And I'm going to, let's see here. I'm going to go back to the screen for a minute. Do that. And I'm going to park this guy. And down here, you'll see I have Balena Etcher. I'm going to fire that up and show you what that looks like for a second, because this is the next step. Now I've downloaded the operating system image. They call it an image. And it's sitting someplace on my desktop so I can find it easily when I get to this stage. And I've also inserted this SD card in the USB gadget into my computer's USB port, one of my computer's USB ports. And then you'll get this. Could you guys see this Balena Etcher screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Up here on the left side, this is step one. There are three choices: flash from file, flash from the internet, or clone a drive, which is to say you copy a chip. You can copy a chip with this program. You want to flash from file. Click on that. It'll allow you to select the file. Having done that, let's see, and I'm going to have to do that, I guess, to satisfy this thing. So give me a second here. I have several on the desktop. And by the way, this is a Macintosh. This program runs on both Macs and PCs, no problem whatsoever.
Hey, Steve, while you're busy there, I just want to let you know the other day I found a micro SD card switch so that you can plug in 2 SD cards into your Pi and just flip from one to the other.
Oh, that sounds dangerous.
I saw one for like $10 and that was from China, and another one was like $20. So it's somewhere in between there.
Okay, cool.
And Belina Etcher also runs great on Linux. I've used it that way.
Well, that's right. Good point. Thank you. So this is not the file for the base thing. This is the file for something we're going to talk about later. But here's what it looks like. It's just the name of the file with a .img. So I would select that and say, okay, open, just to give this thing something to talk to. Now the next thing is select the target, all right? And if I click on that, if I had that chip loaded and I don't right now, it would show up in a list here. And I would click it and say, okay, and then verify it's the 16 or 32 or whatever gigabyte drive. You want to be careful not to select your hard drive on your computer, because if you do that, it's going to cause you problems. So don't do that. And then having done that, I'm not doing it right now because the thing is not included. You would roll over here and say flash. Click the button that says flash. And again, get yourself a cup of coffee, because this is going to take 15 minutes to flash, to write the image to the disk or to the SD card. And then it will verify it. It's going to run back and double check it to make sure everything is okay. When it's through verifying, then it'll get back down to the basic stuff. All right. So that's how you program the card. Now I've got the chip, I've got the SD chip ready to go. When that's all done, I turn off Etcher. I remove the USB gadget from the USB port, and I pull the chip out of the USB gadget, and I've got the chip in my hand, and I take that over to my Raspberry Pi. I'm going to switch to, whoops, no, I'm not. Turn that back on. Fingers thing going on there. Switch back over here to the Raspberry Pi, and on the bottom, see this end of the Raspberry Pi? If I turn that over,
That's where you put your SD card.
all right, there's the slot that the chip goes into right there on the bottom of the Raspberry Pi. Contacts go toward the, away from the printed circuit board. So if you turn it over, the contacts go down, face down on this chip. Notice if I turn the chip over,
You can be able to put it in wrong anyway.
there we go. See the contacts? So that part of the thing goes down when you plug it into the back of the Pi. Now the Pi is ready to go. Okay. Now let me switch back on the video. I don't do this very often, as you can tell, so don't hold that part of it against me. All right, so I've got a card, got the thing, Etcher's done. Now at the Raspberry Pi, I'm going to connect a monitor, a mouse, a keyboard, insert the card, and then turn on the power, connect the power to the thing. Now, Ian, I need you to talk for a few minutes while I go figure out why this thing didn't restart. I'll be back.
Okay.
Okay.
All
Thank you.
right. Well, there you go. All right. We'll take a quick little intermission here. Does anybody have any questions or anything we want to talk about here while we got a few minutes?
Right.
Real
All right.
quick,
If you have
Yeah.
a regular laptop, Steve, Ian, then all I have to do is download the software and just let it rip, correct? Instead of going the whole Pi thing. Sorry.
Are you talking about like if you want to do WinLink, but you're just wanting to do it with Windows?
Correct.
Yeah, you'll download what is it, WinLink Express? I think it is, guys. WinLink Express is what you want to download, and you download that, and you'll be able to get started without any equipment at all, because you can actually use it via the internet, and actually start using it and start sending things and receiving things through the internet. But then, of course, eventually you want to hook it through your TNC and get to where you can send it through the radio.
That's the biggie. It's the radio trick now.
Yeah.
Okay, but we'll get
Yeah.
to that. Thank you.
Yeah, but like I said, it can be used with the internet or just the radio. And of course, the goal is to get it to work on the radio. But it's nice. It's nice that you can go ahead and start with it right now and begin using it even with the internet.
Yeah,
So.
I'd like to get to start using it on a radio. That's the biggie. But
Yeah.
we can do
Yeah,
it.
that's the real goal here. The Raspberry Pi is an alternative method for using a Windows-based or a Linux-based PC. Think of it as, it's not so much that this is so specific for Raspberry Pi. It's a computer with an operating system that runs the WinLink program, and it can either go through the internet through a telnet connection, or you can connect it to your radio. And it doesn't matter the rest of it. The underlying stuff is really more dependent on what you're comfortable with. So if you're comfortable working in Windows, you can run the WinLink RMS Express. If you're comfortable with the Raspberry Pi stuff, it's fantastic. It's cheaper than buying a laptop. It's cheaper than having a big hard desktop type PC, and it's infinitely more portable, obviously. The functionality is going to be relatively the same. It's going to run the WinLink program. It's going to allow you to generate message traffic either through radiogram forms. And that was the big thing about the whole Raspberry Pi, was initially it didn't run with forms. And that's what was really the big hurdle that Steve was working through, and finally got this to work right for us, so that if you want to run Raspberry Pi, which is a small, compact unit that you can put into your Go box that has very low power consumption, but getting it to run with the forms so that you can run radiograms, so that you can run the ICS 213s and the APRS reporting forms. That was the big step that Steve got us over that hurdle for us, that we can now get a smaller package to be able to do this either through a telnet session through the internet, whether it be through Wi-Fi or a hardwire connection, or through your RF connections. Through radio. Now, just keep in mind, though, that if you're sending and receiving traffic through telnet, you cannot count that on your station activity report as messages sent, received, or delivered, because it's not done via RF. The ARRL and the Radio Relay Leagues and Radio Relay International won't allow you to, quote, count those, so to speak. It's up to you. It's an honor system, obviously. So if you want to send that stuff and count it towards your SARs and your PSHRs for, the NTS traffic system, just remember that if you're doing stuff over email or over the telnet through sending these messages, you should not count that, just to keep it fair to everybody.
Okay, I am back.
Right.
We are still here.
Yep, good. All right, thank you for that. And covered a lot of ground there, Leo, and I appreciate that. Some of which we're going to cover later, but not all of it. So you did some good there. All right.
Just wanted to fill up time for you, Steve.
Yeah, appreciate that. And what was really funny about this thing was that I thought that the Pi had crapped out, and it wasn't the Pi at all. The monitor shut down. It timed out. So I turned the monitor back on and it works fine.
Things happen right.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those old hell type things. Okay, we're going to go back to screen sharing now. And I am going to share with you this thing. All right. This is the Raspberry. This is my Raspberry Pi running on my Macintosh over VNC, a virtual node controller, or whatever they call that thing. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So I've now got the chip that I programmed, and I have put it in my Raspberry Pi. I've connected monitor, power, keyboard, and mouse, and turned the thing on, and this is what I'm facing. So what's the first step? The first step is up here, upper left corner. See the little Raspberry? Click on that. come down here to preferences, and then Raspberry Pi configuration is the next step. And by the way, there are lots and lots of YouTube videos on most of this stuff, so you can find it. In the configuration panel, there's just a couple of things you have to do here. I like to see, you probably shouldn't have to do anything with system or display. On interface, and a little bit of this depends on how you plan to use it, but I always turn on SSH and VNC to allow me to control the thing from another computer if I choose to do that. And I'll tell you a little later on why. And then come over here to localization, and here you set your locale. Notice we've got this thing set for English in the United States. Okay on that. Set the time zone. Our case, New York, America. Got that. And then the keyboard. This is pretty much a, you know, a standard English US will take care of that thing. And the last thing is Wi-Fi country and tell it United States. Those things you should set. Having done that, then clear that. I'm sorry, there's one more thing. One more thing I forgot about, which is important, just a little bit. Raspberry Pi configuration, again, the first window. The name of this thing is Raspberry Pi by default, okay? If you're going to control this over the internet for any reason whatsoever, you probably want to change that to something else. You put your call sign in there or something to that effect, and then change the password. And to change the password, all you have to do is click here, enter a new password, confirm the new password, and then go from there. When you're done, you say, okay. And at this stage, I would restart the Pi. Okay. Now, this is the basic operating system. This is what you get if you download Buster. And let's look at what you get when you download Buster. Under programming, there are a whole bunch of things you can do by way of programming a Raspberry Pi to do things. And if you connect your Raspberry Pi, you can connect it to lights and switches and motors and fans and all kinds of things. You can buy a kit, by the way, with lots of different parts in it that you can build stuff with if you're into that sort of thing. And I commend that to you. It helps. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but it helps me stay a little bit young and connected to have to do some of this stuff because it makes me think about it, right? Education, not too much under, in fact, there's nothing under education. Smart Sim, it says. I don't know what that is, but if you look at Office now, the next one down, these are free versions of what amounts to Windows Office. They call it Libre, L-I-B-R-E, Office. There is a calculator, there's a drawing program, there's a math program, there's a writer, a word processing program. Everything that you need, the base is database program. Everything that you need is in this thing. And what you can do, what you do here is compatible with Microsoft Office stuff. So you could create a document here, move it to a PC, and open it in Microsoft Office. Okay, so be aware of that. Internet, the Chrome web browser is on the internet thing. And this is my Pi, of course, is connected to the internet right now, so I can show you. There's the browser. And who's our favorite stuff here? Have I got it? I don't have it. fmarc.net. And see, there it is. So anything that you can do with a regular PC for all practical purposes, you can do with this guy. It takes up a lot less space, costs a lot less money, but that's not necessarily why I'm doing this stuff. Sound and video, there's some stuff in here for that. Graphics. Games. There's some interesting games in here. I'm not a game guy, but I understand that Minecraft is an interesting game, and there's a Pi version of Minecraft built into the base operating system. Accessories, let's see, Archiver, which is, I think, a file copying program. Create, and what does it say? Yeah, create and access archive files. Calculator, file manager, PDF viewer, if you're working with PDF documents. Raspberry Pi diagnostics. Here's an SD card copier. So you can copy, same deal. You put the thing into the USB carrier, stick it in the USB port. You can copy a SD card to another SD card. Task manager. This is more emulating some of what a Windows PC would do, but it's in here. Whoops. And then, of course, the preferences thing, we already looked at that. And there is also, by the way, a terminal window or a terminal program built into this thing. So if you're into doing things on command line stuff, you can enter commands in this thing from the keyboard and make it do stuff. Also, if you choose to do that, you can modify some of the subroutines that are built into the operating system here and save them. And then the next time you run the thing, again, that same chip will make it go for you. There's a way, by the way, in the preferences thing to change the font size so that you can see it, right? I didn't touch that, but right now, so the fonts are really skinny right now. But this is the basic operating system. Now, again, I'm going to throw this back to Ian and or Leo for a few moments, and I'm going to go back and change the chip that's running in the Raspberry Pi so that I can show you the one that we're using that contains something called Ham Pi. I want to show you that one first because that's a very interesting operating system. So let me throw this, let's see here. I need to close the screen. Here's the screen.
All right.
All right. And I'll throw this back to Ian, and
Yeah.
you guys take over for a few minutes.
I gotta tell you, one thing I do like about that is it does seem to be pretty simplistic to operate. Yeah, go ahead. I've got this for a few minutes for you there. And what is that, Leo, for? What are you showing us?
I don't know if you can make it out on the screen or not, but I have a little case that goes around my Raspberry Pi. I saw that Steve didn't have one, but if you're rough on stuff like me, they make these little cases and they'll save all your pins and everything else. And then for my keyboard,
If you look at a background for Steve's thing, at the very bottom right-hand corner of his video stream, you can see that he has the Raspberry Pi with some sort of add-on card. They call it a hat for Raspberry Pi, but it's also encased in that same acrylic sort of protection that you have, and that is an absolute must, Leo. If you're going to be carrying this thing around, the last thing you want to have is a printed circuit board, laying on a desktop and somebody spill a coffee or a soda while you have the thing powered up.
and then for the mouse and keyboard, I just bought a universal USB all-in-one, and it just runs right off of the board there. Just plug it in.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Away you go.
Yeah, is that what's the name of that? Not iOmega.
It's a keyboard mouse all-in-one type thing, and runs.
Oh, is that
battery.
is that Logitech? Is
Yep.
the Logitech compatible with the Pi? Yeah, there you go. I
Yep.
got the same board. Yep. Okay.
And-
Yeah, exactly.
Although
It weighs
that's a really good question. Now, typical Windows keyboard and mouse will work with the Pi. It doesn't have to be a specific kind.
Works fine with Linux too.
Wow. Okay, that's cool.
It's just plug and play. That's all you gotta do.
I like that. In the past, when they said things were plug and play, they weren't. But I guess now they're starting to actually get plug and play.
No, it was plug and pray. Papa Romeo Alpha Yankee.
Oh, it's that. Yeah, that's what it was. It was all. There's a lot of promises we've been given, shovel ready, things like that.
The Windows thing, though.
Yeah. Windows plug and play. It took them about 15 years and 4 versions to get that right. All right. Anyway, back, Steve, you ready? Oh, nope. He got back up. Oh, he's down. He's up. Okay. Not sure if he's Steve, you ready? Did he get it going?
I got it going, no problem whatsoever. And I'm going to pick up the screen sharing thing again and then show you a different operating system, a Raspberry Pi operating system with a different configuration. And this again has nothing to do with the work we've been doing on the Winlink stuff with forms. All right.
What is this obsession we have with food?
Well, this is a
Ham pie.
ham pie, right?
I'm hungry. I haven't eaten dinner yet. All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, go eat dinner. I'll keep it busy for a little while. Okay, ham pie. This gentleman, the W3DJ, has put this thing together, and I stumbled across this the other day quite by accident. And it contains most of the basic stuff that we were looking at a little while ago, although he's put some more stuff in programming here that I saw in the first one. Nothing in education. The Office Libre stuff is still there. He's added a document viewer. Internet, still Chromium. And odds and ends and so on and so forth. But what gets down to the thing is, where is it now? Ham radio. Here it is. This one, ham radio. Look at what he's got in here. An antenna analyzer, an automatic packet reporting system, which is to say APRS. All right, built into this thing. Calculators, Smith chart calculators for those of you who are into stuff like that. DRATs, the D-star equivalent or answer to the forms, the Winlink form system or something to that effect. I've tried this. I almost got it running, but not quite. It hasn't figured out the Ratflector part of the thing, I guess, yet. FLDigi, if you're into FLDigi, you know, digital stuff on your radios, and you connect a radio and an appropriate sound card to this thing, you can run these programs on your Raspberry Pi and let your radio do the work to connect you to all of these FLDigi things. He's got the complete, actually, he's got more stuff in there than I've ever seen in an FLDigi setup before, but it's in there. The logging programs, he's got a bunch of different logging programs in there. The one that I like is not in here, but there are some in here. Got a Morse code. I haven't tried this. A Morse code thing of some sort. Let's take a minute here and see what this is. Failed to open. Didn't like that. No file. Oh, I see. There's no file because I haven't set anything up yet. Oh, it's a decoder. You can let this thing, you can listen to Morse code and this thing will print it on the screen as you're listening to it. That's what that is. Okay, cool. Ham radio, back to ham radio. What else you got in here? Software defined radio. Oh, all right. Now I haven't, this is the first time I'm looking at some of this stuff, by the way, so forgive the oohs and ahs. But he's got a software defined radio built in here. Training.
What about that? If you don't mind me going back up to PSK, is that the PSK reporter? I bet that, yes, it sure is.
Yeah.
Look at that.
PSK.
PSK 31 and the PSK reporter too. That's pretty cool. All right. That's neat.
This is all built into this ham pie thing. And if you go to the web and capture W3DJS or just to search ham pie, you'll find that image and you can put that on a SD card and throw it into your Raspberry Pi. Let's see, what is this training it says here? I'm not too sure what that is. Ham exams. Yeah. Okay. So if you're looking to take a license upgrade or something like this, I suspect these are links back to the ham exams that you can take. Weak signal, it says. Oh, grid tracker. Hey, there you go, Ian. The grid tracker thing is in there. Some other JS8 call is in here. WSJTC or JTX. Let's see, Blue DV. I have no idea what that is. Chirp. Look at this. He's got chirp built into this thing. I love it. Free DV. What does that say? Digital voice mode for HF radio.
That's a digital voice mode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
GNU Radio Companion. What does that say? Graphical tool for creating signal flow graphics and generating flow graph. I can almost read this stuff. It's on my screen. It's a real light white on a light gray, which is hard to read.
I think it's a waterfall.
GP predict. Ham clock. Hey, Tom.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
The ham clock is built into this guy.
You sure it's the same thing?
I'm not sure. I've never
Bring
run
it
it.
up
So
and see what you get.
let's see what happens. Click anywhere to enter setup screen. All right.
That's identical.
Yes, it's the exact same thing, Tom, Steve.
Okay. So what does this do
I have
for
it
you?
both set up. I have one that I downloaded, and I also have this one. When I found a ham pie, I took it on right away because it has everything. And if you find something that's not on there, you can add it to it.
That's right. Okay. And the beauty of it is, like I said, it's on the chip. So you take this chip out of your pie, you put another chip in, you put this one aside, label it someplace and mark it so you can find it, because those are easy to lose. All right, so ham clock is in there, ham fax is in there, some other odds and ends, pat menu. See, this is the pat menu thing is part of what we've been working with to get forms up on the Raspberry Pi. So this is an early iteration of this thing before they got the forms built into it. Some other odds and ends. All right.
Well, Steve, if you go to the FL Digi suite on that menu drop down, they have the FL message.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and that's basically somewhat the same functionality, where you'd have the ICS 213s and the radiograms and the shelter reporting or messages and a bunch of the Red Cross stuff built in from the FL Digi. Yeah, go communicator expert on the yeah, that's the one you want to have. And then from the template choice or form on that menu bar, you can select and pick something like a radiogram. And the nice thing about this that I found versus the RMS Express, the Winlink stuff, is that it allows you to save that radiogram with pre-populated items. So if you're always sending stuff out, it'll hold and pre-populate your station contact and your city sent from and your signature, as opposed to having to create those all the time within the Winlink system.
Okay, so here's radiogram.
And you can fill out a certain set of these here and then say it's on I believe it's the template, and then save it to a file location, and next time you can do a template choose and it will pick up all the pre-populated fields that you have set up into it.
Okay, so it's just like Forms and Winlink for all practical purposes then.
Yeah, but it does allow you to save a pre-configured set of instructions within, say, a radiogram, so you don't not always have to type in your call sign and your station origin and etc. Automatic date fields, and it does an automatic check for you too for check routines on the message count.
Okay, and the Winlink Forms basically does the same thing. You can save the data and then call it up the next time you want to use it.
Not in radiogram. Not in the radiogram, I don't believe.
I'm not sure about the radiogram. I know a lot of other forms have it, but
right, the ICS stuff and the Red Cross stuff that allows you to save that config data, but the radiogram doesn't allow you to store it like this one does. And this will then allow you to put it out through PSKs or RIDIs or FT8 or anything that it can communicate through. Yep. It will do it that way digitally for you. Okay.
So I just wanted you to see this. This is one of these things that you can do with your Raspberry Pi. You can download this chunk of software, put it on a chip, stick it in your Raspberry Pi. And if you have a radio connected to the Pi, then you're in business. And we haven't talked about radio connecting to Pis yet. That's further on down the list. Okay, I'm going to turn off screen share here for a minute, and I'm going to go back to this thing. And Ian, I'm going to let you talk for a minute while I make change the chip in the Pi and show you the next thing I want to show you.
All righty, very good. Let's see here. The one thing I just, there is only one or two things I wanted to bring up tonight, and I already mentioned one earlier, but I'll bring it up real quick again while we're just killing a couple of minutes here. And that is that there is we're on a geomagnetic storm watch for Sunday, and it looks like there's a likelihood that we're going to get some disturbance. It's not going to be a major storm; it's going to be a minor one. But on Sunday, we're probably going to have some fluctuation in the geomagnetic field. So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. I could not find any good contesting this weekend, really. If anybody knows of anything, let me know. I mean, did anybody see anything out there? I couldn't find anything. And I kind of went through the contesting and couldn't find anything. So I just was wondering if anybody else had found anything for this weekend. I'm telling you, I love contesting, but I'm finding out that it's not like it's not like it happens all the time. This is what I found. This is on the SWFLtech.net website. I have this calendar on there, and it's under resources, and then you scroll down, it's under contesting. Anyway, the only thing going on is this thing right here, and it's an RTTY contest. And then there's the Russian DX contest. I mean, I don't know if any of this is worth getting involved with this week. It doesn't look like. Does anybody see anything there that's worth doing?
Ian, bear in mind that some of the RTTY contests include FT4 and FT8.
Well, let's see here. All bands. I don't know. It really doesn't say. I'd have to go read it, but I'll go check it out. That would be cool if it does.
Yeah,
anyway.
sometimes they do include that, and you, like you said, you have to go check that out on that list.
Yeah, I have to go further. I have to go go to the actual website and look it up. But anyway.
Hey, but
all right.
This weekend, everybody should get their gear ready to contact us over at the Buckingham event. If you're not going to show up to work, call in and get a contact.
Don't get me started. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely make contacts with you guys from home before I go to work each day. Steve, you ready?
Just about. One more second here.
Okay. All right. No problem. Yeah, I hope I would love to do it, but I can't drive all the way out there when I got to be back at the station at 1 o'clock. Especially with my van tapping. And you know, I took the radiator out last week, mixed up this goo, fixed it. It works great. 3 days later, the water pump goes out. So now this weekend, I got a $36 cheap ass water pump sitting over here, the cheapest Duralast water pump they make, and I'm going to be putting that in over the weekend. I'm not a mechanic, folks. I'm watching. My wife goes, I've got the whole front of the van off, the grill. I got the radiator out. I got the fans out. I got hoses everywhere. I got water. And my wife comes out, and I'm laying down in front of the van watching a YouTube video on my tablet. And my wife goes, "Oh my God."
Ian, Ian, as a former past mechanic, do the work that you need to do on your way to the water pump. So if you have to open up something and replace or remove an idler pulley or a timing belt, get those parts, because you only want to have to go do that job once.
And that's real good advice, except in this particular case, this van's got over 200,000. It's tapping. It's got maybe 6 months left. So I'm probably not going to spend anything more than I have to spend on it. But that's real good advice for any other vehicle we're talking about. Maybe not this particular.
Throw in a little bit thicker oil. Instead of running a recommended 520 in that, bump it up to a 1040 or even a 2050, and that will help with some of your tap.
Yeah, I'm running 1050 high mile full synthetic right now, and I've got some honey in there too. Okay.
Okay, if we're done with the mechanical stuff.
I'm driving it I'm driving it like a little old lady. Back to you, Steve.
Okay. Good one. All right, I'm going to go back to screen share again, turn that back on, and we'll take the next step here. Let's see, this one. Whoops. That's you. Yep, there it is. All right. So I'm hoping everybody can see this Nexus DRX. This is the chip now that contains the software that allows us to run Winlink with Forms. Steve Magnuson on the West Coast up in Washington State put this together. And what he did is he stitched together a bunch of existing programs some of which we've already talked about. And then he wrote a GUI, a graphical user interface, to make it easy for the average guy to set this thing up and make it go. So again, this is an operating system, Raspberry Pi, start here, preferences. Now, Raspberry Pi configuration. Notice there's some other stuff in here that wasn't there before, but we're going to just stick with this part right now. Raspberry Pi configuration. And by the way, if you are interested in running this thing, this operating system on your Raspberry Pi, send me an email and tell me that you'd like a copy of this chip. This is not something you can download from the internet. It doesn't exist as a downloadable something from the internet. We're talking about maybe having Rich Snyder's set it up on one of his servers so that people could download it locally. But right now, you'll have to get a chip from me if you want a chip. I'm not trying to be sticky or anything. It's just that that's the way it is. I'm going to charge you $8 for the chip because that's what it costs me for the chip, but everything else is free. So here again, same deal. Interfaces, you want to make sure SSH and VNC are enabled. There's a bunch of other things enabled here. Don't necessarily care about them, but they are in this system. Localization, same as before. All right. Having done all of that, notice this thing says my call on it, and it also shows here Raspberry Pi 3 Model B plus 1.3 with 1 GB of RAM. You can tell this thing that information. Let's see, where is that devil? I think it's up here under ham radio. Yep, I'll find it. I know it's in there. I forget where he put it. At any rate, here under ham radio are the tools. And notice FL Digi, FL Message, FL Arc, again, the stuff that you would normally need to make this go. Now, if you are going to connect a radio to this system, up till now, we've used a hardware TNC. Most of us have a TNCX or something like that. It sits between our computer and the radio to make that connection. This thing uses the Direwolf, which is a software-based TNC system. And then all you need to connect to your radio is a sound card. Some of the radios have the sound card built in. Some of the ICOM units do, for example. Most don't. You have to have a sound card. We'll talk about that in a few minutes, but right now just sort of hold that in the back of your head. Having set this thing up, then the next thing you do is come over here to Direwolf TNC and you click on that puppy. I'm going to get into the Winlink with Forms thing here, just to show you what this looks like. Come on, baby. Let's do the twist. Well,
Looks like my Windows machine. It forgot what it was doing.
yeah, something going on. It's the first time I've run this on the 400. Normally I run it on my, oh, no, I was going to say that may be the problem. It might be the problem because this is the full throated version of this thing. Let me try one more time here. If this doesn't, then I'm going to need a couple minutes to switch to the other setup. Huh.
You know, it's interesting. I was just looking, there's a Raspberry Pi emulator for Windows.
Oh, God. Okay. All right.
I mean,
I'm
that's
going to.
cool.
Yeah.
Raspberry Pi has performed an illegal instruction and will be shut down.
Where, is that showing here someplace or what?
No, I'm talking about running it on Windows.
Oh, okay. Ian?
Yeah.
Let me turn off the screen share. Back to you for a minute while I switch pies. I think I see. I think I know what's going on.
Probably
Okay,
running out of memory. You're gonna put it on a 4? Yeah,
Oh, he's putting it on the one he put the hat on.
yeah, he's probably gonna put it on a 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. Without his headphones on, he doesn't have a speaker broadcast. A lot of what's going on here is, Steve has shown us a bunch of different operating systems, configurations, and all it really is a disk image file that resides on that chip. And you can take any one that he has and add to it what you want, and then capture it as a disk image and save it as a .img file on some external hard drive somewhere as a file. And whatever computer you're on, it doesn't matter what it is, as long as it can read that .image file. So you can run a Linux OS, you can run a Windows OS, as long as you have a piece of software that can read and write disk images and burn stuff from a source file to a destination location, whether it be a little micro SD card or a compact SD card or an external USB dongle card, device. It doesn't matter. Those of you that are running Windows systems, if you get one of these Raspberry Pi kind of Linux images, which is really the underlying OS for it, if you get that Linux image and you get the appropriate drivers that you need to run your piece of hardware, whether it's a Lenovo or a Dell or an Asus, if you get the appropriate drivers built into that OS on that image, you could then put that into a USB card slot on the side of your computer, and on boot up, tell your computer to boot from that device instead of its internal hard drive. And this way you don't have to buy extra items. You don't have to buy a Raspberry Pi computer per se. You could use that image on a USB stick in the side of your quote regular daily driver computer laptop that you use every day, and just on boot up, just say, hey, boot from this location instead of the internal hard drive, and you'll be able to start all that up.
If on an HP laptop, for instance, you could probably hit F10, F11, one of those as you come up, and it'll come up and bring you the choice of which one from which to boot.
Yeah, for the HP laptops, it's generally an F12, and same with the IBM/Lenovo's, as I recall from my days. This is what I was responsible for the last 10 or 12 years at the company where I work, is creating disk images for operating systems, for servers and for laptops and desktops that we deployed to 160, 175,000 machines globally, where someone in Asia would just log into our deployment system and say, I have this piece of hardware, I want this operating system, click the build button, and it would pick the right items, load it onto the internal hard drive of that machine, and within 8 minutes, you would have a 20 gig image loaded down, fire it up, type in your username and password, and you were on the network.
Hey, Leo?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just sent Steve yesterday a article about hooking up a SSD or even an HDD to a Raspberry Pi and using that for the memory.
You know what? Do me a favor. Send me a copy of that too. That might be an interesting read for me as well. Like I said, that's what I've been doing for the last 10, 12 years, was building, image files, disk images for deployments for, God, I think we had probably 10 different laptops, 15 different hardware, desktop types computer systems, and a dozen servers that we developed build images for. And people would just be able to log into a web interface within our company and say, I've got this hardware, I want this operating system and this sort of general package, whether it be for an email server or for a secretary's laptop, and just make those choices off a pick list, hit build, and walk away, go get a cup of coffee, and 15 minutes later, you got a running computer.
That's right.
All right, Steve, you ready?
Steve, you have to put your headphones on, please.
Yeah, on the Raspberry Pi 4, you should be able to boot from an SSD if you've got the correct USB adapter.
Okay.
I would just while we were waiting there, I'm downloading one of these emulators. I'm trying to see if I can get one working so that I can play with all this stuff before I actually buy my ham pie or whatever, Raspberry Pi.
Okay, copy that. I'm sorry, Mr. Who was just talking a minute ago is correct. You can run a Pi from an SSD card. There is a way to do that. And it's fairly simple to set that up. Again, there's a YouTube video. There are YouTube videos that cover that subject. I was watching one the other day that shows you exactly step by step how to do that. I'm going to go back to screen share now. I've got this thing running and I understand what went wrong. So here we go. And we want this guy and that guy. Now, what went wrong was this. The chip that I put in the Pi, in the 400, is programmed to run in the Nexus, in a Pi running the Nexus DRX hat that I've built. There's a kit that you can buy that you can build that gives you the sound card. It gives you all the connections so you can connect to most any radio with this thing and control the radio if the radio is capable of being controlled. A lot of other features built into this particular product, but the catch to it is it's a kit and you have to put it together. A lot of soldering involved. There are count them, 40-pin headers that you have to solder to the printed circuit boards, which gets to be challenging for those of us who are old and have limited vision. At any rate, so here we go again now, running this thing. I'm sorry. And then the reason it wouldn't run before is this particular software now is looking for that top hat. It's looking for that header, which contains the sound card and some other stuff to make it all go. So now, if I pull that up, it should work. And there it is. All right. So this is the opening screen on the Direwolf TNC and PAT configuration. And notice PAT, we're back to the PAT menu thing again, which is part and parcel of this particular piece of software. You start by configuring the software, configuring the TNC. You enter your call sign. And in this particular setup, there are you can control two separate radios. So there's a left and a right. And notice up here at the top, it says, if you use the left radio, then you say capture left, playback left, GPIO pin 10, which is the squish to talk button that controls your transmitter. So you need to make that left. You make this left. Here's the GPIO 12. Okay. Everything else you just leave alone. The Direwolf rate is 96,000 baud, but that's just internal to this thing. It has nothing to do with your radio. Here's the radio, 1200 baud to the radio. Okay. Set these settings and then you say, okay, open the PAT web interface down here at the bottom. I'm going to click on that puppy. And what that will open up is, in effect, the Winlink message window. Tick, 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 and there it is. Now, notice it's already got my call in here because I had entered that a little while ago. There's an inbox, an outbox, a sent box, an archive box, and an action tab. All right. Right now, there should be, I don't think there's anything in any of my, and there are not, boxes. So if I want to create a message now, I go to action and I say compose. All right. And in the compose window, notice it's a basic message form, but down here at the bottom, I have templates. And if I click on templates, this is the entire template set from the Winlink organization. Okay. And you can update this set. And I don't think this has been updated to the latest. I'm sorry, you can update it, and I will show you in a minute how to get to that. But right now, I'm just going to capture the FEMA forms, for example, start there. And if I wanted, scroll down. I'm sorry, I want the ICS forms. Wrong. There we go.
3.0.
ICS USA, because I'm looking for the ICS 213. Oops, I'm sorry. Having done that, my mouse is a little iffy. ICS 213 is here. And there's the form. And it's the Winlink form. It's the same form, all right? So you can load initial data if you have it. Otherwise, you just enter all the information. When you're done, you click submit. Obviously, I have nothing to load here, so I'm not going to finish this up. But if I did, let's see, if I click submit, it would just tell me all kinds of garbage. So I'm not going to do that. Back to the interface for a second. If you close a window, this is, by the way, notice this is running in your browser. It's running in my Chromium browser. This is the foundation of this thing. So now, having done that, I've created a message. For example, if I come back here and say, okay, connect, and I have a choice, and I can connect either Telnet. I can do that right now. And if I do that, the target is Winlink. And notice it's my call sign at CMS telnot.cms. whatever the devil. So if I say connect, notice at the bottom of the screen, zip, and disconnected. So it's gone into WNI and GPI to see if there was anything there, and there wasn't. So it comes back and it says, okay, there's nothing there. If I close out of this and go back to this window, what was I looking for? Here it is. This actually shows you the thing down here in the middle, connecting to Winlink, Telnet, via Telnet, connected. It does a check. It says, yep, there's nothing there, disconnected. All right. Now, if you had a radio connected to this head, this hat, this Pi hat that we've got, then the radio would do it instead of Telnet. And you have a choice back in that web interface thing to choose the radio and send it out via Telnet, or pardon me, via RF. And I've done it. I know the thing works. It's really great. So just be aware of that's how this whole thing is structured. I have a full set of how-tos. Let me get out of this. Stop direwolf and pad exit. A full set of slide stories. I've got 2 slide stories. One shows you how to set up the chip in your Raspberry Pi. This is assuming you get the chip from me, or we get this thing set up with Rich and you can download the image. You set up your Raspberry Pi. How to set it up is in the first slide story. Then the second slide story shows you all that you have to set up to make the Winlink thing work, the Winlink with Forms thing work. And there's also a couple of interesting gotchas in here that you have to be aware of and be cautious of. One of which is, let me think here, where is this thing? Under preferences. What am I looking for? Oh, I'm in the wrong, that's why I'm in here. The Nexus Updater, again, is part of this software. If you click on Nexus Updater, you get a window here, which lists all of the, oh, okay, new version's been installed. I got to do it again. That one, by the way, updates itself automatically. Back to Nexus Updater again. And here it is. Now this thing puts up a list of all the stuff, all the different programs that are installed as part of this software. And if you decide you want to update one of these things, let me open this up a little bit more. Here we go. Because this is important off to the right. Notice it shows here on the thing installed or new install. If it's installed, it'll say check for update. So if I click Raspbian, which is the base operating system of this thing, and I come down here and I say, okay, I'm not going to do this, but if I did this, it would go back to the internet. You have to be connected, by the way. It would go back to the internet and pull up the latest version of this thing and install it. And then it'll say, by the way, you probably have to reboot this when you're done. So you can select anything that you want to, that you think needs to be updated. You just check the boxes and then say, okay, go get a cup of coffee and let it run. The other half of this is where it says new install. Let's see, what do we got? What's a new install? AX25 keyboard to keyboard chat. Nah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to install anything, but well, that's right. There's an APRS client built into this software, by the way. So here's another, yet another APRS client. I'm just going to talk about this for a second. It's just a choice. That's all. I would, if I wanted to install that, I would click the box in front of this thing and then say, okay. And the software will automatically go to the web, pull in the program, and install it on your chip. So that the next time that you start the program, I'm not going to do this. The next time that you start the program, you reboot this thing, then that program will show up under ham radio in the list. Okay. So that's a very powerful tool. There's the gotcha there is you have to be careful because some of these things take 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes to download. And you have to be prepared for that mentally if you're going to do this. One of the options is update all. Don't do that. There's another interesting option built in here, and that's RMS Gateway Manager. This program will allow you to use your radio as an RMS Winlink RMS Gateway server. Okay. I want to caution you on this. First, you have to register with the Winlink people to be able to be qualified to do that. If you're not registered, you won't have a password that'll make this work, all right? But the danger is this. If you turn this thing on and you fill in all the data, you configure this thing. This is part of this GUI that Steve wrote. You fill in all this data and you say, okay, start. It never stops. It does not shut off. You can turn this thing off. You can turn off the Pi. You can disconnect, pull the chip out. You can do everything you want. This program will continue to run. Okay. You have to go to the terminal window and give it a very specific command to get it to shut down. So I caution any of you that get this chip from me, don't screw with the RMS thing. Just leave that alone. All right, because that'll bite you sure as shit. Okay, I'm going to break out of the screen share. Let's get out of this. And then, Ian, I'm going to let you talk for a minute while I shut all this down. And then there's one more thing I want to show you by way of video that I haven't showed you yet. All right?
All right, very good. All right, guys. Well, that's going pretty good. Still got 18 of us in here. That's pretty good. And I want us to take a little break here and see if there's anybody that wants to say anything or ask any other questions of the group while Steve's fixing a few things there.
Hey, Leo.
Which Leo?
Leo 1, check your chat.
Check my chat. Okay.
All right, and I also I'm going to ask. I'm not sure who yet, but I'm going to find someone to cover the net in 3 weeks. I'm taking a week off. I was going to ask Tom Muley if you wanted to do it, wanted to run the TechNet for me in 3 weeks. If not, I'll ask somebody else too, but I'm just looking for someone that would like to run it. And I'm going to be taking a week and going to the mountains, and I may be able to check in for a few minutes here if the internet provides, but I have very little internet where I'm going. I'm going up to the mountain, and I'm bringing my FT100, my wire, and my FT8 rig, and I'm hoping to make some contacts up there. I have this drill in Charlotte County coming up that actually Leo 4 and I have been talking about doing, and I realized that it was actually on the date that I was going on vacation, so I had to move things around so that I can still do that drill. But I moved things up a week, so I'm just letting everybody know in 3 weeks I will have a fill-in net controller, or whatever you want to call it, host.
Send me the info.
Guest host.
Yeah, no problem. I will. Yeah, just if you want to. Let's see here.
I'm back.
You say he's back. Let's back to you.
Oh, I like that. Okay. All right. Just one more thing I want to show you. I'm going to turn on the webcam. Little guy. See if I can do this. Let's see here. How can we do this? All right. Can you see that guy?
Yeah.
All right. That's the Raspberry Pi with that top hat that I was talking about. The top hat comes in 3 sections. One is a sound card. It's a little printed circuit board gadget that sits in the middle of this whole setup. One is a buck converter that allows you to power this from 12 volts, converts the 12 volts to 5 volts, and it runs the entire stack. If you want to supply 12 volts to run it, you can also run it from a 5 volt, 2.5 amp supply. And then the other thing, the third piece is the kit. All right. And I forget how many parts, but if you, let's see, I don't know if you can see this. Let me turn off the printed circuit board. There we go. This camera has a built-in what's the word?
Infrared illuminator.
No,
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
obnoxiously bright light.
Well, that was the overhead light. Yeah, infrared illuminator is correct. But you can almost see the parts on that printed circuit board down there. Yeah, you can. Right. So it requires that you put that whole puppy together. But notice now, if I get over here to the end, you see the usual connections, the USB ports and the Ethernet port. But above that, there are ports here for 2 radios, the 6-pin standard mini DIN connectors, 2 radios there. And on the other end, there is you can almost see it. It looks like an Ethernet port. It's not, because what this guy did is he built into this puppy. Let me get out of this monitor. Okay. There we go. He built into this setup, in effect, a signal link setup, so that if you have or purchase a signal link cable that will connect to your radio, and you get the signal link jumper information for that chip that goes inside that just says the receive is on here, the transmit's on there, the microphone is here, and you connect all those wires just as you would a signal link. Now this gadget will function with your radio as if it was a signal link. He's really thought of everything. He calls this thing sort of a Swiss Army knife of connectivity, which is pretty much exactly what it does. It allows you to connect almost anything to your, almost any radio to this thing to make it work. And I've used it now with an FTM 100, a Yaesu FTM 100. I've used it with a Kenwood V71. I've used it with, let me think, what was the other one? Another Kenwood, I forget what it was. So as a device, it's a great controller. You don't necessarily have to go that far if you don't want to. One of the guys the other day pointed out that curses. There's a company making a Masters Communications. I think that was it. Masters Communications makes, in effect, a little sound modem device that'll get you PTT and everything else and connect between the Raspberry Pi and your radio, and accomplishes the same thing for about $50, $60, something like that. So one of the questions that Steve Clayton asked the other day was, why do this? Why do this? And that's a good question, and I don't have a good answer for you. What you have to decide is this of value to you? And if so, take advantage of it. Oh, and there was one more thing I wanted to tell you about the Raspberry Pi. This software includes software to run it as a hotspot. So, and I've done this. What you can do is you can set it up as a hotspot. You can connect it to your radio, okay? And then on your laptop, which is now loose, you don't have any cables connecting to this thing, and you can wander around your apartment or your condo complex or whatever, as long as the signal's strong enough to make it back to the Raspberry Pi. And you can pull up, just as I was doing as a VNC, you can pull up the screen on the Raspberry Pi, and from your laptop, you can create emails with forms for Winlink and send them out with the Raspberry Pi that's connected to the radio, even though you are not physically connected to the Raspberry Pi. That feature, I think, is a really neat thing. Okay, Rich Snyder's is doing that. He says he likes sitting in his easy chair in the front room instead of sitting in front of the radio, writing Winlink emails. Okay, I'm going to shut up. That's all I have to say on this subject tonight, and I hope that it was of interest to you and of value to you. Anybody needs a chip, let me know. Send me an email. W9GPI, back to net.
It says you're muted, idiot. Let's take any questions that we have for Steve or for anybody on the Winlink or on the Raspberry Pi. Any questions?
Yeah, Steve, the software that you use to burn the image to the chip, could you use that same piece of software to capture the image from the chip, store it as an image file, and distribute that to us, as opposed to you having to spend your time and effort to go buy chips at stores and stuff like that? Because I mean, I got a shot glass full of stupid little chips sitting around in my house here that come out of cell phones and whatnot. So it might be worth it to play around with that for myself if I could just get the image file.
Okay, and that's what I was talking about early on. Rich Schneider's is going to put that image file on a server that he has and give us access to it. He'll send me a link, and then I'll send the link out to everybody on the Winlink list, or anybody who sends me a note and says I want the image. So you've got two choices. You'll have a choice. You'll have a choice of doing it that way, or send me a note and I'll send you a chip, whichever is the easiest for you.
Yeah, that's just what I'm used to doing for work, was developing image files and putting them on servers across the globe to download and build PCs with. So I mean, that's what I did for a living for almost 20 years. So
cool. All right, we got to take advantage of that talent.
No problem. I told you about that last year. I'm ready to go.
Okay.
Steve.
Yes.
Instead of using a USB device, can you use the little card adapter that the Raspberry Pi sends you, or Adafruit sends you, like this thing I'm holding up?
Yes, sir. You can. If your computer has a port that'll accept that thing, then you're in business.
Right. Yeah, you can do that either through a port on the side of your PC, or if you have one of those USB-based chip card readers where you can read an SD, micro SD, mini SD, any one of those where you can download it from your camera. One of those little plug-in devices. That's all it is. Just don't get too hung up on the micro technology and just think of it as an external hard drive with a cable to your computer. And if you can take a chip out of your camera to download images, if you have to, you can do the same thing with this, whether it be a straight plug-in or you got a little cable or, direct, it'll all work.
All right. Any other questions? Wow. Awesome. All right. Well,
now Steve has done yeoman's work on this, getting this Raspberry Pi thing with forms going. I know he's been, I mean, you can almost see the mark on his forehead from banging it on the wall trying to get this thing working. But he's got this working on a very small, compact, micro-sized unit that will fit into our Go boxes. And that's the real benefit of this for us here, in the Fort Myers area with the alert kits, that it's so small with a very small power draw, that you can do the Winlink stuff, do the point-to-point stuff. If you've got the right radios, you can reach out and do HF with it. But you also, the primary thing is the forms. Being able to create the stuff easily, visually with the GUI, with the forms. so that you don't have to try to remember the text formatting of what a radiogram looks like in a text format in Winlink. And you do it enough, you'll start to pick up on it. You remember it. And you can almost create yourself up your own little .text file and save that and use that as a format. But being able to use the forms and being able to have it pop open in Forms through Winlink, make it easily readable, that's the real benefit. Because again, it's all about quick communication of concise information to the right people.
Exactly, and it's definitely quicker and more concise than voice. I think it will definitely prove that over time.
Oh yeah, much more so. Yeah, Steve, thank you for your efforts. I know you have spent weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, maybe months on this. We've watched all the emails and the progress reports, and it has been, I want to say, almost funny to watch, because we can see you turning more and more gray and getting more and more bold while you were doing it with your email responses. Hey, look, I'm losing my hair too, bud.
Hey,
Fantastic work, bud. Fantastic work.
I resemble that. I resemble that remark.
Hey, so do I. So do I.
Fair than you do.
I think there was another question. Was it Rick or somebody had a question? Go
Yeah,
ahead, Rick.
hi, Ian. I wanted
Hey.
to say thank you very much for the presentation. As a new ham, I think it came in excellent. It really helped me out a lot in getting started with Winlink, Ian, and I appreciate you putting it all together. And Steve, that was fantastic presentation for 2 weeks. A question I had: what would be recommended gigabytes for how many gigabyte chip would you be using for this?
I like the 32 gigabyte chip. They're reasonably inexpensive, but 16 will work. You don't need more than 32 for sure.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it all.
Yeah, just as a note on that, 2 weeks ago, I was over at Walmart and I got a 64 gig SanDisk branded one for $16.99.
Wow.
Best Buy has.
Which turned out to be not so good of a freaking bargain, because my FTM 100 only recognizes the 32 gig chip, so I had to go buy another one anyway. So yeah, $16 was, I'll find a use for it somewhere.
I had that problem for a while with the USB ones. I had to change it to a FAT 32 or an NT something. I had to change it because the only one was working with the larger sizes. I wanted to mention one quick thing, thumb drives. I bought a couple of thumb drives about a year ago, just before I got in ham radio, and they purported to be 1 gigabyte thumb drives, and they were really inexpensive, and I bought them. They're garbage, and I read about them, and I'm telling you guys, I'm the guy. I'm the first guy that will buy something cheap, something that's not name brand if I can get by. If you're going to put something important on these things, if you're going to put something important on these things, I'd buy something with a name on it, at least for the next few years, because these cheap ones are still too cheap in order to trust them with your data. All right. Anything else? Anything else on Raspberry Pi?
Yeah, I can tell you that on Raspberry Pi, now I've got something here that I use a Raspberry Pi for called a Pi hole. Now the Pi hole is nothing but it's a DNS server that filters out advertising, and I love it for internet use around here, because then I run all my systems here talk to that to get DNS, and it filters out a whole lot of stuff and saves a lot of time. But that's just one thing. I'm starting to I like to build a Raspberry Pi based weather station. So there's lots of things you can do with them. I mean, this is just scratching the surface.
Yeah, I almost see myself buying a bunch of these Raspberry Pi 3s that are becoming kind of cheap right now, and just making single projects. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, so I really like that all that stuff's all built in. The fact that they're the FT8. I mean, I'm building a second FT8 rig now out of some old computers and stuff, and I've got it up and running, and it's pretty cool. But you could set up an FT8 rig with that. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on the Raspberry Pi? All right, guys. I don't want to go too late tonight. I'm really whooped, and I've got to put a water pump in the morning. So I don't want to cut it short, but I also don't want to belabor this longer than we need to tonight. Is there anything else that you guys are working on or any other projects that we can talk through with the group? Any problems you're having with anything? Anybody looking for any resources?
I was surprised when I turned on the Winlink today using the Raspberry Pi and Steve's expertise, how many messages I had waiting in the queue for me.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's because you rolled those grenades out to the traffic net. We all had to do the Hotel X-Ray Charlie back to you, Tom. That's why you had like 80 message replies and service replies going back to you. and you don't show up on the traffic net to pick them up.
You know what? I didn't start that. Dave one day asked me if it would be okay if I used W4LX for that response, and I said, "Well, sure, why not?" I didn't realize how many messages that was going to generate.
Well, well, at least one for every call out there. And I mean, I know you probably get two for me because I send it via email and via Winlink RF just to make sure that you get it both ways to satisfy all the requirements. Just being thorough.
Yeah, I didn't get to respond to yours on Winlink. By the time I finished Dave's, my fingers were tired.
No worries. Don't worry about it whatsoever. Especially on a Thursday, because now we have the Traffic Thursday messages going out, and whoever is the FPTN rep or the Tropical Fastnet rep has got his hands full sending messages over to Texas.
I'm sure he does.
I've noticed an inordinately high amount of messages going to Texas recently.
Yeah, that's Aaron Hewlett out there, Kilo 8 AMH. He's set up this thing called Traffic Thursdays, where he's trying to keep the I guess the traffic net alive in his area. And I've stumbled across a bunch of forums out there where everybody says, "Oh, what's the purpose of the traffic net? And is this really used?" And yada, yada, yada. Well, hey, earlier this month, I sent one to my brother, right? And I figured the guy would give him a call. The guy drove 30 minutes from Brick, New Jersey to Jackson, New Jersey to deliver the form handwritten in person because it was a birthday message for my younger brother. Now, that right there is going above and beyond the call. I was impressed with that. So I sent him a very nice note back via email and thanked him for the extra effort and, mentioned the fact that, normally, hey, a phone call or an email to him would have been good. I could have called my brother. We all could call everybody we send a traffic message to or send an email to him, but it's just nice to keep the system active. And, it was nice for my brother to get that piece of paper, I guess. It was a little extra bonus for him. He called me up. He's like, "This was so cool." And my brother's not a ham, so.
WG4K, you still on board?
All I know is Tom's holding up a clock, but I didn't get no blue crystal. I can't get that on here.
No, Dave WG4K has a identical one to this that he was given for being the top blue crystal person. But I was
No, wait a minute. Are they in sync as they are in Back to the Future? Come on, Tom, get yours closer up to the camera.
I don't know, but it's running off of my Raspberry Pi.
Wait a minute, one of you's from the future.
Oh no.
Scary, huh?
That means somebody was speeding at 88 miles an hour down Estero Boulevard.
All right, guys. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I'm going to get out of here and give Ian a chance to get his beauty rest so he can fix his truck in the morning or his van in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah, Ian, thanks for hosting these things. This TechNet is fantastic. I look forward to being able to stay on with this, when I head back north. This is a fantastic resource.
You should be able to do it from up there.
Oh yeah, no problem. Zoom is no sweat.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping that we start to pick up some people from outside the area, because what I've noticed in ham radio is we're all kind of in echo chambers. All the people around here work with all the people around here. And it's kind of nice to get people in from other states and other areas. Well, my club's building this. Well, my club set it up like that.
Yeah,
I think it's a good thing.
If they're like me, they're meeting clubs in other areas. I meet with clubs up in Atlanta all the time. In fact, I'll be talking with a bunch of those guys tomorrow. So,
Well, I know that the Wednesday night Fusion Net, we have a whole host of folks that come in from Wisconsin, Minnesota area, the upper Midwest area, that join into that room over the internet. Maybe we should send some of those call signs, the link to this for a Friday night, and start to build this up like the Tuesday night TechNet that
There
I
you
hit
go.
on the IRLP East Coast Reflector, where we have Dave out in the Philippines that comes on every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. And we talk with him and guys down in Canberra, Australia too.
I got to say, I have one negative thing to say about the Fusion Net, and that's all the weather shaming that goes on. There's a lot of weather, just gratuitous weather shaming. And I'm not.
They're just jealous.
Shaming.
They're just
they come
jealous.
On, this guy comes on and you can hear the wind in the background. He's like, "Yeah, it's 22 below zero up here," and I'm like, and we're like, "Yeah, it's 73 here. I'm wearing shorts and flip flops. I'm out on my deck, and that's weather shaming. I'm sorry."
Oh, you got to remember, most of us lived up there in the past, and we're so damn glad that we're not up there anymore. That's not shaming. That's
shoot. I still live up there, and I come down here to get away from that. Though a week after we left, I got 3.5 feet of snow at my house in Pennsylvania. Mother Nature and Old Man Winter tried to track me down from New Hampshire, but I beat them and headed south.
I'm just waiting for them to have a snowstorm in Atlanta, so I can go outside and take a picture of the palm trees.
There you go.
Very good. Very good.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Again, Ian, thank you. Steve, thank you.
All right. Guys.
Wonderful work, gentlemen. Good night.
And anything about Atlanta, all it takes is about 1 inch of snow to shut that whole town down, because they don't deal with it like they do up north.
I drove 14 hours through a snowstorm up there to get from Peachtree Corners to Marietta.
It is. Who you kidding? I watched them shut down the state of Tennessee for a 1/4 inch.
Yeah, and I'm sure people from like New England come down there and they just point and laugh. They're like,
yeah, we don't even bother changing our tires to snow tires. It's all season tires. That's nothing. Like, it'll be gone by lunch.
They'll be like, we'd still be dining outdoors. I mean, what are you people doing?
That just fills in the potholes.
It just fills in the bottom. Hey, I've been known to barbecue outside when it's 5 degrees outside. So
I was born and raised here, so I still like snow. I still think it's cool.
Awesome. Tell you what, we're going to switch places. You can go to my house in PA and shovel out the driveway, which is 1,000 feet long, when I get a 3-foot snowstorm, and see how much you like snow then.
I would be glad to trade with you, but you're going to have to produce the driveway tray radon.
After you sit in your house trapped because the snow won't go away, you won't like it so much.
Yeah, I know.
No, there's no such thing as being trapped. If I got to get out, I get out. There is always a way out, whether it's the tractor, the truck, or on foot. I'm out. If I have to get out, I get out.
Ice is the problem.
I mean, our first winter up in New Hampshire, we moved in July, and the first February that came around the following year, we ended up with a nor'easter up there that dumped 40 inches of snow over 3 days with 70-mile-an-hour winds.
Wow.
And I said, well, okay, time to fire up the tractor and dig myself out. And I got out to the road and went to the grocery store. Hey, when you're hungry, you work.
That's right. You do what you got to do.
You do what you got to do when it needs to get done. That's right. Hey, Ian, thank you for the Friday Night Tech Nets. These things are wonderful. Always have a ball on them. Yeah, and hey, looking forward to seeing you guys or hearing you guys next week on the air. Call in, make the contacts, get a QSL card. They're pretty cool looking ones too from the Buckingham event.
All right.
They will send them. They will send them for local contacts if you do it over the air.
Yeah, I'm going to try to find you guys on both local. I don't know if you guys are, if they're monitoring a certain 2-meter channel out there or something, but I'm going to try to get you guys on something.
I'm not sure. I'll tell you what.
It's not a contest, so I can just.
Well, it's not a contest, but if I find out, what I'll have them do is I'll have them broadcast that information on the traffic net on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I know that at least Wednesday and Thursday that Bob, W2ARP, and Jeff, NK4AA, are doing traffic net from out there. Tuesday, I'm not so sure about, but if we get the information, I'll make sure they put that out there to do a local 2-meter contest or contact. I know they've done it in the past, but I'm not sure about this year. We'll see what we have set up. Hell, shoot, I'll go sit out in my truck and run my rig when I'm not cooking. Oh, speaking of which, Leo, Sunday, are we still on for Sunday for shopping?
Just let me know what time. I gotta get a hold of Joe, but yeah.
Okay, not a problem. I'll be in touch. Well,
think we did
gentlemen,
it. I
have a
think we're
good
done.
night. Time to hit it.
All
Bye
right,
now.
guys.
All right.
Everybody, yeah, everybody have a good night. I'm going to be going too. I've got a whole big plate of spaghetti in there with my name on it. So I'm going to
Oh,
go
you
eat
gotta go
that.
get that. All right.
Yeah, I got to heat it up now, but it'll be good. You know, spaghetti is always better on the second night, and we'll save that for another net. All right, guys.
10-second warning.
Sounds
Yep.
good.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you next
Thanks,
week.
Ian.
All right.